Did you know that currently there are 1.39 million victims of sexual servitude worldwide, with a total of 27 million men, women and children in slavery today, including that 1.39 million in sexual servitude, with the average age of slavery being 12. Did you know that human trafficking is the second largest global organized crime today, and that it generates $31.6 billion US per year, with 27.8 billion of those US dollars being generated by trafficking for sexual exploitation and servitude? Did you know that most of this sexual trafficking occurs in Eastern and Central Europe, with 90% of victims trafficked into the European Union member states ending up in the sex industry, with only 1 to 2% of these victims ever being rescued, and only 1 in 100,000 Europeans involved in trafficking ever being convicted. The main destination for these trafficked people is Greece, which is known as the center of trafficking in Europe, while the source of most of these women, predominantly, is the Ukraine, with over 420,000 Ukrainian women between the ages of 15 to 27 being trafficked in the last decade, with the Ukraine now having over 440,000 cases of HIV. Although there are other sources and locations for these trafficked people, including the United States and Bulgaria, these are the major centers of the problem. So, for the Project for Awesome this year, I have decided to support A21, or the A21 campaign, a recent non-for-profit organization founded in 2008 by Christine Kane, a world-traveling motivational speaker. Although the broad aim of the organization is to abolish injustice in the 21st century, they mainly concentrate on sexual trafficking in Central and Eastern Europe. A21 has teams on the ground in the Ukraine, Greece, Bulgaria, the United States and Australia, as well as a couple of other countries. Within these countries, A21 works on 3 main principles to combat the problem of sexual trafficking, and it has had widespread success in its first 5 years. Firstly, A21 works on preventing human trafficking where possible through awareness and education. Many of the people who purchase the services of the sex industry are unaware that many of these girls, predominantly, are working under duress in horrible conditions and that they are being forced to work there against their will. Thus, A21 works on awareness and education in both the schools in these countries of origin as well as the greater public. They work to inform school children on common trafficker techniques and establish teacher training programs to continue education. They also try to educate the wider public on the consequences of trafficking as well as the plight and the conditions of these trafficked people. A21 also tries to provide legitimate and safe employment for those at risk of trafficking so that they will be able to support themselves and not fall for possible trafficking organizations. Secondly, A21 works on protecting those at risk as well as those people who have escaped or been rescued from trafficking situations. Across Europe, in the places previously mentioned, A21 has set up a series of safe houses and transition houses for victims to prevent them being re-trafficked and to provide them many services that they need. These services provide support both emotionally, physically and mentally, as well as providing psychologists and first aid services for victims. Over a 12-week period, victims are provided with a number of services including trauma rehabilitation, life skills training, language training if needed, as well as many other services that they will need to avoid being re-trafficked again. The rescued victims also meet with justice officials and police to obtain a certificate of human trafficking to provide them with further protection. Further transition programs have been established and are being established to increase the amount of support A21 can provide for these victims. Finally, A21 works on prosecuting those responsible for human trafficking, as well as rescuing as many victims as possible through raids on discovered human trafficking locations. They provide legal counsel to every victim in their care and represent them in court trials and to provide care and protection for those victims who are testifying. Since 2008, A21 has seen the conviction of a couple of human traffickers in the locations mentioned previously. Although this may not seem like a lot, it is a massive step up from the 1 in 100,000 stat I reported earlier, and A21 are constantly pushing to convict as many human traffickers as possible. So how can you help this organization? Firstly, just by being aware and understanding more the issues that I have covered and trying to find out more is a great way of moving forward. I've left a few resources below, including the sources I used for the information in this video. I've also included some links to A21 websites, including internship programs and volunteer opportunities. Secondly, the song you've been hearing play behind me is called 27 Million, and it was written for A21 to raise awareness of human trafficking, with most of the profits going to the organization. Link to buy the song is below. Finally, you can vote for this video on the Project for Awesome website so that A21 may be able to get some of the money from the Project for Awesome. Or you can donate yourself. Thank you for listening and watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Project for Awesome, and don't forget to be awesome.